First, I want to start off with a couple of brief comments before I'll take some questions. First off, and most importantly, just wanted to send my condolences to Marvin Jones and his family over the last couple of days of what happened with his son Marlo. Pretty horrible thing that happened, and I was able to spend some time with Marvin on Saturday afternoon with Jasmine, and it's probably one of the more difficult things I've ever had to do. Have a pretty good connection with Marvin since he was the first free agent that I signed here in March of 2016. So just to kind of see him in that state was hard for me, and I just want to say that from the organization, for myself, that we're behind him 100%. Anything he needs in support, we'll be there for him. Kind of puts in perspective of a year that was not up to par for us, and goes to show that there's things that are way more important than football games. But everybody in this building is a family to me, starting with our ownership down to the support staff, to our players, to our coaches, and this is a time we can all pull together. So also want to say I'm very supportive of the support of Mrs. Ford and her family during this season. Obviously, when a season goes this way, there's a lot of conversations about players, about staff, about wins, about losses, about injuries. And her thoughts and her family's thoughts and questions are very insightful, and there's really good conversation on a more than weekly basis about everything that's going on here. So also want to thank the fans. I think, on the road, as a lot of the guys in here travel with us, on a weekly basis to our away games, some pretty incredible showings of support from our fans on away games, and especially obviously at Ford Field. The place is always rocking. So shout out to those fans that are with us. They continue to be with us, and that's very important to us. Thank you guys here to the media for your support. You guys are obviously the conduit to our fans, and that's important. The NFL season's long and hard for everybody, and you guys included, so I hope at the end of the day today you guys get some rest as well. I'm sure I'll see you guys soon in Mobile. Bottom line for our season, I'm going to say this word a lot, is we didn't finish. And Matt said it a couple times. I'm going to say it over and over again this whole offseason, because when I look at everything, and we're just in the beginning stages of kind of evaluating the whole season as a whole, it just was a season we didn't finish. We were in all the games. You guys know all the statistics about how many times we were leading and how many games we were in and all that, but at the end of the day, we didn't win enough, and that's the bottom line. And that's our responsibility. Our responsibility here is to look at that over the coming months. Look at everything from A to Z, from players to scheme to organization to you name it. We're going to evaluate it and do everything in our power to make it better for next year. I thought, going into the season, we played well early. Thought there was some major improvements on the offensive side of the ball in the first month of the season. And then there was really just some games where we didn't play a full game. We played well on offense, didn't play well on defense. Played good on defense, didn't do enough on offense. Settled for too many field goals. Green Bay first game. So a couple points here and there early in the season, and we could be having a whole different conversation today, but we're not. And so our job is to look back at it, evaluate it, and try to make this, right this ship and get this team going where we all know it should be. We're going to take a hard look at everything, from players, like I said, to scheme, to coaching, to organization, to injury prevention. I'm not going to stand up here and ever make excuses. That nobody wants to hear it. The fans don't deserve excuses. They deserve answers. And, that's kind of what we have to sit back in the next couple weeks into months and look at a really, wide open lens, and then to narrow that lens down to when we have to make bigger decisions coming forward on the team to put a better product on the field next season. So there are high expectations every year. There's high expectations going into preseason, high expectations going into the off season, and that's never going to change. That doesn't matter if our record's 16-0 one year or what the record is this year. So the expectations are always to at a very high level for myself and for the coaching staff, and that's never going to change. So disappointing, lack of finish, and we're going to do everything in our power to get this ready, get this better, and right the ship. So open it up.
Bob, at some point this season, Matt started using more words terms of like build and process. At what point do you think the message became this was a rebuild as opposed to building on the foundation you got when you got here and when he got here?
Yeah, I think anytime you bring a new head coach in, there's going to be a lot of change. We talked about this last year after the season. Probably a little bit more expected than going into it, but that's when you get in the building and you see things you want to change, and Matt wanted to change some things, and he has, and it's taken a little bit longer. Bottom line is we got to do more to win. I think that's the bottom line. Whether it's scheme or players, it's going to be a combination of both every year. We all know that. I think it's just a process that it takes longer for certain teams, and some teams hit it off the bat, and unfortunately we're in a position where going into year 3 we got to step up to the plate.
He's won 9 games in 2 years.
Yep.
Why does he deserve a third season? Why do you think he can still be successful after so far?
Yeah, because you look at the whole body of work, and there's not enough wins, Dave. There's not, and that's the bottom line in this business. But in terms of talking to Mrs. Ford and her family, it's just the foundation that's here, and the good things that have happened, even though they have not equated to wins and losses. To scrap that and start from scratch, would be taking a step back. So I think that's kind of some of the things that we look at, and we just gotta push forward to next year and evaluate everything, and just really take a hard look at ourselves and take a hard look at everything, myself included, and see what we all can do better to make the record better next year.
What are the good things that have happened? Some of the things we don't see maybe every day.
Yeah. I know Matt's talked a lot about the foundation and everything, and I go into I got to sit back and watch the whole season again. That's all I'll do in the next couple of weeks. But you just go back to yesterday, right? No one gave us a chance in that game, right? I mean, did anybody in this room give us a chance in that game? No. And we were down to a playoff team, the number 2 team in the NFC, that beat us on a field goal at the last second. We signed 14 players off of our practice squad this year, 3 players off other teams' practice squads, and all those guys were playing a decent role yesterday. So I'm proud of those guys. So I see that foundation. Now, I'm never going to sit up here ever and say that injuries are an excuse. They're not. We had a lot of injuries this year, and we got to look at that and see what happened there and see what we can get better. Those are some things that are just, off the top of my mind, they're a little bit fresh. I think, when we sit back and get a little bit closer to the mid-season, off-season portion of the time, we'll have a little bit more of a reflection of, where that is. But I was proud of our team yesterday. We lost the game. I'm upset about that. But to watch some of these guys that basically just got an NFL uniform in the last week, Anthony Pittman, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, Bo Scarborough, all these guys that, they're fighting their butt off each and every week on the practice squad. We give them a jersey, and they're going to go out there and play against Aaron Rodgers. So I give those guys credit.
I think that question for a lot of people is, 9-7 wasn't good enough 2 years ago.
Yep.
Why is this good enough now? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think I just answered that, though. I think we don't want to bring it down to the basement again and start the foundation again. That's the answer. Mike?
Go ahead.
No, Mike's good.
Yeah, how important is it to have the dynamic defensive player? We get a pass rush now, that guy can win one-on-ones and not necessarily have to win the scheme, but just dominate his position.
Yeah, obviously, the more pass rushers, the better, right? You want to get after the quarterback. But I think, we always talk about, is it pass rush, or if the coverage is a little better, will the pass rush get there? So it's always a combination. Then you throw in, okay, well, how many times are you going to blitz per game? So the answer to your question, yes, always like another pass rusher. Those are hard to come by. But I think it's always a combination of those things when you really evaluate the whole body of work in terms of trying to get after the quarterback.
You mentioned obviously all the injuries and everything on that one side. How close do you feel like you are to being a playoff team, not just a playoff team, but a playoff winner and a true Super Bowl contender?
Yeah, that's the money question, right? Appreciate it. I'm not going to put a timeline or a number of players or this. There's a lot of things we need to get better at. There's a lot of things. When you win 3 games, it's not just one thing. We sit there every week and evaluate the games and look at the roster and look at the scheme and look all of that. And it was hard this year for us to point at one thing. And I think it was hard for you guys. Sometimes if you have a poor year, you can just say, if you guys did that one thing different, you would have won 10 games. You can't do that with this team. This was an abnormal year for us. And it's something that we're going to have to really dive into because, we sit there scratching our heads every week where we didn't finish or we were 2 plays away or, bad call here, bad break there, drop pass there, and it adds up to our record. And we're going to own our record. That's what it is. We can't change it. We're going to accept that, and then we're going to look forward to try to, give this team and this city and this organization a better record going forward.
About 4 years ago, you sat up there when you were hired and said that building the depth and the plus the roster was really your focus.
Sure.
Do you feel like you've done that 4 years in based off of, you talk about injuries, but...
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. I mean, we have 16 guys on IR. That's a lot. So, I mean, I know some other teams out there that, we've talked about have 9 or 10. I mean, I think 16 is a pretty high number. So to find 16 injury replacements from our practice squad or on the street during the course of the year, and ours really, when you really look at it, I think they started happening around week 7. The beginning part of the season, we were a little bit healthier, I would say. But, 16 is a high number to kind of replace. So I think the answer is yes.
With Darius Slay, is it the team needs to give him a new deal or trade him? That option C, just letting him play on the last year, is not really an option.
Listen, now I'm not going to get up and talk about anybody's contract status. Never have, never will. That's the conversations that we have internally with the player and their representative. So we'll leave it at that.
In terms of decisions you look back on, would you say it was a mistake not signing a veteran quarterback to back up Matthew in hindsight?
Yeah, good question. I think we went through a lot of quarterbacks this year, and I think eventually when we got down to it, we made the switch early in the season from Josh to Jeff Driscoll, and then when Matthew got hurt, Jeff went in there in the 3 games he started. I would say that he probably played good enough to win 2 out of those 3. We didn't win those games, and that was probably a byproduct of the defense not having a great day or special teams not having a great day. But, Jeff went in there and I thought played at a decent enough level to help us win the game. Then you get down to your 3rd-string quarterback, and listen, David Blau is a rookie free agent that we brought in as a developmental guy, and all of a sudden he has to start at the end of the season. So he wasn't perfect, but the experience that he gained, the plays that he made, were pretty impressive. Now, did he have some mistakes? He sure did, and he was going to learn from those. So, that's something we're going to look back at and see what we need to do going forward in the future.
Follow up on that is, I was just going to ask, since you've been here, you usually haven't spent a big amount of money on your backup quarterback. Some teams will take an ex-starter and they pay him a lot of money.
Yeah,
That's
sure.
something that you might rethink this time and get maybe pay a higher end.
Yeah, possibly.
Backup.
Possibly. It's something that's it's fairly team by team. And sometimes when you have a higher priced starter, it's a little bit more difficult to do what you're doing. If you have a quarterback under his rookie contract, it's a little bit easier financially to do that. But that's something we'll look at and evaluate this offseason for sure.
Beyond that, in the quarterback conversation, 2nd straight year, Matthew's had back injuries.
Yep.
He seems very confident that these are going to be something he can put in the rearview mirror after the season's over.
Yep.
From your perspective as the guy building the roster around him, what is your confidence level that these won't be lingering issues going forward?
Very confident. Just talking to all the doctors, trainers, and Matthew himself that he's going to be good to go for the offseason program. So no issues there.
As noisy as this season was, and you touched on it, near misses, leads, 4th quarter leads, everything.
Yep.
How difficult does that make putting your priority list together moving forward?
Yeah, it's gonna be a tough evaluation. Some seasons when you end, it's pretty clear. Like you need X, Y, and Z. I think this season's going to take a little bit more deeper dive into, some of the what-if situations. What if Deshaun Hand didn't miss almost the entire season? What if some players that we thought were going to perform at A level performed at a B level? So it's going to be a little bit a deeper dive, I think, for us this season, this offseason. But we're looking forward to diving into that. I think everyone probably needs a couple days to regroup and get their lives in order, and then we'll come back and hit this hard and try to get the evaluation going. So.
Why did you trade Quandre Diggs?
The Quandre Diggs trade, I know Matt spoke to you guys about that when it happened. Thought it was the best thing for the football team at the time. Going back, it was something we felt good with Will Harris. stepping in there and playing. And unfortunately, the week after that, Tracy got hurt. So it was kind of a tough week or two there when you make that trade, and then a guy that you're really counting on to take that leadership role gets hurt and he misses a couple weeks. So that's just something we decided was the best thing for the team at the time.
Do you regret making that deal now?
No.
You did have some discussions, trade talks about Darius Slayer on the trade deadline. How serious did those get?
Not very serious at all.
No. Do you expect him to be a long-term part of this team?
I answered that question a few minutes ago.
The money you spent in free agency last winter, did you get the production return on the investment you expected?
Yeah, I think Trey Flowers played exceptionally well. I think, Trey, I think the first couple weeks of the season was kind of still battling through the shoulder thing, but once he turned it on, I think he played really well for us in all aspects: run defense, pass defense, quarterback hits, hurries, sacks. Justin Coleman's another guy that we signed, played really, really well at the beginning part of the season, had a little bit of a lull mid-year, and then kind of played really good towards the end of the season again. So I think I'm good there. And then, Jesse James needs to get more involved in the offense. I think when you sign a tight end in the offseason, then you draft one in the first round, it's kind of hard. It was kind of a hard thing for Jesse, but I know Jesse's excited about going forward with a really deep tight end room, and that's going to be a big part of our offense going forward. So.
You share your emotions that you got another shot to come back and be the GM here.
Say that. Rephrase that.
I don't think we've heard from you since we knew you were getting able to keep your job. So just
I like my job, so I'm happy to be back. I mean, do you like your job? I mean,
I feel fortunate to have your job. I mean, there was a lot of talk
yeah,
about you and Matt, and it came out that you and Matt will get another year with the mandate that the playoffs. And you talked about the fans as well and how loyal they are home and away. So why should they trust you to turn it around? What would be that?
I feel very confident in my abilities. I'm very thankful to the Ford family to be here from 2016 on. And I feel that, with myself in the GM seat and Coach Patricia as the head coach, I think we're going to get this thing turned around.
Just to be clear, since the Fords did take the coaching decision out of your hands, I guess, did you agree with that?
Yeah, I obviously speak to ownership all the time. They asked my opinion on the head coaching position with Coach Patricia, and I gave them my opinion and analysis, and I agree with their assessment.
Have you given any edicts to Matt to make some changes on his staff?
No, Matt has full authority on his coaching staff, so I do not.
Bob, what would it take? You mentioned finishing. The organization, long before you've been here, has had trouble finishing. Pressure points, collapse. What is it going to take for you guys to have pressure points where you go the right way?
Yeah. Can you pressure points? I don't know what that means.
Arizona, you had a 24-0 lead, and every season's got like 2 or 3 points that turn the season.
I got you.
And traditionally, since you've been here, and even before that, those points have usually gone the wrong direction. What can you do to finish?
Yeah.
I mean, you have a real good year and finish it.
That's the $1 million question. That's what we have to look at and say, what are the things we can do to, when those big plays come up in the Arizona game, or don't let the officials take the officials out of it in the Green Bay. What can we do to avoid kicking 5 field goals in the Green Bay game and scoring 1 more touchdown and it doesn't matter at the end? Or you name it, down to the Oakland game when we're down to our last drive and have a chance to score, like all those things. So that's everything we have to evaluate. I don't have the crystal ball right now to tell you the one thing. If I had that one thing, we would be standing here right now. So that's something we're going to take a hard look at this offseason and do everything in our power to make the decisions that are best for the organization and to get us over that hump of getting over those pressure points and winning.
Thing. I mean, sometimes the first couple of years it was like later in the year.
Yeah. Well, this year was pretty. It was, looking back at it, my first year was 2016, and that's when we had 8 fourth quarter comebacks. Is that right? And this year, you guys know the stats of the games we lost after having a lead. You guys know the stats better than I do. So it was almost like the reverse of my first year for whatever reason. So, I hope I answered your question, Pat. I just was trying to.
It's a complex thing that's kind of been a zillion-dollar question for like a long time. The folks that you mentioned the conduit to the media.
Yeah.
About that. That's what they want to know the answer to.
Yep. We're trying to sort that out.
If the mandate is playoffs or bust, or however you want to phrase it, how does that not affect your decision-making, short-term versus long-term roster building?
Yeah, that's a good term. That's a good question. You know, when I took this job in 2016, you know, my vision was, as a general manager, you always have to have your lens on the short term and the long term, and that's not going to change. That is not going to change for me. Obviously, we need to win next year. I understand that, but when you're trying to build the organization, you're trying to create this lasting ability to win. You have to make decisions that are prudent for short term and long term. It has to be a combination of both. If you go after it one year, you might go 8-8 and not do anything, or 9-7, and then the next year you have nothing. So I have to take all personnel decisions, all decisions for the organization with a short term and a long term focus.
Just to kind of follow up on that real quick, is anything, you mentioned the conversation with the forwards and Rod, has anything changed, I guess, with the dynamic of how you go about this offseason or the decision making there?
No, it's all pretty much the same, standard procedure.
And then I know you said you weren't going to talk about player contracts, but the Christian Jones one, since it's done, the extension, just I wonder if you could explain what went into that.
Yeah, Christian was a guy, obviously, we signed 2 years ago. Really good scheme for what we do, very versatile. It's, you know, as you guys know, when we're trying to build the front seven, it's really hard to find linebackers that can play on the line of scrimmage and off. And I think Christian obviously has shown he can do that at a good level. And thought with his contract coming up, we had some discussions mid-season with his agent. It came together pretty quickly, actually, and we thought it was a fair deal for a guy that's, you know, played a lot of good football for us the last couple of years.
Just to follow up on John's question about, you know, the short and long term lens that you have to keep, I guess. How does that, I don't know, impact quarterbacks at the top of the draft? Is that something that you'll continue to take a look at? Obviously, you have Stafford under contract.
Yeah, obviously, you know, with where we're drafting, we're going to have to pay attention to everybody. You know, I think previously when we were drafting the teens and 20s, you could really not spend a lot of time on the top 7 or 8 because, you know, with what it would cost to get up there, you would really never do it. So I think this year with where we're drafting, we're going to have to take a close look at everything and just know really from A to Z, 1 to 250 the draft, rather than not focusing on just the top, just the guys we're going to be picking. Sure, quarterbacks included.
And I'm sure you've had your first round of draft meetings, so what sort of player can you expect to get in the top 3? Not specific names, but how big of an impact can that be?
I mean, you would hope the guy would be an impact player at 3. I think, you know, the draft pool isn't set yet. The juniors haven't officially declared. Some of them have, but we're still waiting on. You're probably going to hear another 50 names here in the next couple of weeks of who's declaring. So I think I'll kind of hold comments on that until maybe we talk about the combine.
Speaking of the draft, Bob, how beneficial is the Senior Bowl? If you guys are asked to go coach that, just what do you guys get out of that week?
Yeah, I've never been a part of a staff that has coached it, so I've heard good things. And I know a few staff members that are currently here were on the staff. The last time we had it, I think it was the year they drafted Ziggy. Is that correct? So I've heard good things. I think we're, you know, if we get that call here in the next couple of days, we'll be excited about it. You know, Mobile is a great place to visit. I usually spend, you know, 4 days. What's a couple more?
One more question. Speaking of draft, a question about the 2019 draft. I think you had 8 players, 8 or 9 players played, started games and all that.
Yep.
Was that by merit or by injuries or whatever? What did you just think about the overall?
Yeah, probably a little bit of both. I mean, some of those guys, obviously we drafted and they played and we wanted them to play, and I think some of them played because of injuries. But I think we feel good about our draft class. We always, you know, the biggest jump is from year 1 to year 2. So we want those guys to make a big jump. You know, TJ is going to come back healthy. You know, Jelani thought had a good rookie year for a linebacker. It's a hard position to play as a rookie, and he stepped in and played really well. You know, Will had some growing pains mid-season, but I think Will Harris played his best game of the season yesterday. Really kind of let it loose and played fast. So that was a good sign. And some of those other guys later rounds, they did a little bit, but they need to do a lot more next year. So.
Last one. Oh, Bob, I got a question. I know it sounds crazy, but forget about the records. I know you evaluate division talent.
Sure.
Do you feel that your talent level is getting closer to the rest of the division since you got here? And take the injuries away and everything, just the talent.
Yeah, I do. You know, the record doesn't indicate that, but I do feel like, you know, our talent, you know, we're not there yet. We have to add some guys like we do every year. Every team changes. I talk about it every year, 25, 30% every year. So we just got to make a good run at it this year and make sure those new 25% of our players can contribute at a high level and you know, help push us over the edge to get more wins. So good. All right, guys. Thank you. Happy New Year. Happy New Year.